Welcome to If People Only Knew, the show that brings untold stories to light. I'm your host, Anna Matson. Let's get started. Welcome to the show. Today we have my bestie, Cate. I'm so excited for this one. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be a heavy one, but I'm excited because last episode I interviewed a farmer, and last week, which I have to reschedule because my power went out. That's why there wasn't an episode that dropped last week. But my friends that are veterans, you guys have all really inspired this show. Like when I first heard your story, I'm like, man, if people only knew.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's exactly what you said too.
Literally.
You said, let's share your story.
Exactly. And I knew I didn't, even though my platform is a lot about politics, not everything's political. I mean, there's political things that, intertwine with these topics and stuff, but I wanted my podcast to be wide enough that we can talk about a wide range of things. So let's just start out, like I like to start out my shows just talking about like you as a person. Like, how was it like growing up for you and stuff?
So I grew up nearby in Heartland. I guess I grew up in down in Howell. I went to Heartland schools. So I always said I wouldn't live in this area, that I wanted to expand and travel the world. And then, of course, I come back and I buy a house and I have a family near my family. But yeah, so I always thought I didn't want to be in, Heartland is a farming community, very similar religion, very similar, middle class working families, and I wanted to experience more. And I did travel a little bit. I lived in a different state, went to a couple different colleges. I feel like I had those experiences, but then having the decision to have a family, I wanted to be near my community. And my sister lives in Linden. My mom lives in Fenton. My dad lives in Linden now. So I kind of like moved back into the area, but I never thought I would settle down over here, but I'm glad that I did. And then when we met, you weren't even living near here, and then you moved here, and I was like, okay, we're going to be besties.
And I think this is so funny because it's just great timing because a lot of people, I've been open that I used to be a photographer, and starting my show and really getting involved in politics, I left that behind. I was running a very successful business, and I just dropped everything because it made me so frustrated to see how much misinformation is out there and fear-mongering. And so I started my platform just to be a resource for people of truth. I say like facts don't have feelings. Like, don't be mad at me if you're just mad at the facts. Okay. And when you explain things to people, they become a lot less, I hate using the word emotional because it's attributed to women a lot, but people just, they put their guard down a little bit. So like the recent thing is the Department of Education. But when you learn about the history and everything, while you may not, like the decision, or you may like the decision, whatever, when you find out the background about it, it's not as scary. Like the Department of Education is pretty new. It used to be an office, and now Trump wants to go back to that where it's just an office. So once you learn everything,
to bring it back to the state,
yes,
not at federal.
Exactly. And the department, it's off topic, but the department, when it actually was open for a year back in the 1800s. And they closed it down within the year because they were like, the federal government has way too much control over local schools.
Right.
So, and that's exactly the reason, like conservatives are all about like the federal government should not be regulating what we do here in our state, whatever. Like they are so far removed from us. Like your U.S. Senator and House of Representative, like they're always in D.C., like they're never home. So you never get to confront them, where your Michigan senator and House of Representative are here. Like you can go find them, like you can show up at the Capitol if you wanted to, but that's not feasible for everyone to drive to DC to talk to your reps. So bringing control back local Like they say all politics is local, and that's really the whole thing. Now, obviously people can disagree with that, but when you hear the reasoning, it's less politically charged. So all that to go back to it, like, so I used to be a photographer, drop that. And I haven't actually told anyone publicly like what kind of photography I did, because since I'm involved in politics, and even I was like running for local office and stuff, I knew people would use it over my head because they don't understand it. And so
but your mission has always been to empower people and to have that opportunity to not be the norm or what society tells you that you should be doing, or society tells you what you should look like. You're very like, I want to give power to everybody, no matter what.
Yeah.
If they're a man or a woman, no matter what they look like, no matter what town they live in, no matter if they're a big shot, if you're talking about like a big shot in Washington, D.C., or they're a little Kate in Waterford, Michigan, getting married, excited to like, you know, feel empowered as a woman. And I think that you've always, not to cut you off, but I just wanted to compliment you that you've always wanted to give a voice and a platform to everybody, no matter what.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I was a boudoir photographer, and I decided to kind of announce that today because I knew it was going to come out by someone at some point. And I'm not going to let someone else take my power. So,
Amen, girl.
you know, it is what it is. If I run for local office one day and someone wants to use that over my head, they're going to have to explain why it's a bad thing that I helped women feel comfortable in their own skin. When we really do have such a misogynistic society still today. If I make a post, I'll make a post saying that Tulsi Gabbard needs to be our first female president. And I get so many comments that women aren't supposed to be in politics. We need to get all these emotional women out. And
That's
it's just,
sad
it really is.
Happening.
It's so bad. So, you know, it is what it is. And, you know, if I know that I helped women. I've had so many past clients like reach out, like, you don't know like what it meant to me. One person was in an abusive relationship, told me it gave them the confidence to leave that relationship.
Really?
And it
Wow.
was really bad.
Wow.
It was a really bad relationship. I had someone that had breast cancer and had to get her breast removed. And she did the photo shoot just to remember her body. I've had people post-cancer, you know, do a photo shoot to celebrate their new body. I've had so many moms, and every mom comes in and tells me that they have a mom bod. And I said, well, even people that are not moms have mom bods.
But like, you need to celebrate that. And we're taught
Exactly.
to hide it.
Exactly.
And I feel like being a photographer is kind of like being a hairdresser, where it's like you're getting your hair done, but it's actually nothing else. There's not a TV around you. There's not kids around you. There's not your partners or anybody else. And it's just an opportunity for like, you're doing something for yourself. And this person is doing something like really intimate with you, like doing your hair, and you're sitting in that chair for 2 hours and you're talking.
Yeah.
And it's like a chance to be vulnerable and be open. And it sounds like maybe unexpected, but you're a boudoir photographer. It's like a therapy session.
Yeah.
Like finding yourself again.
Yeah.
And trusting this person to like, protect you and have a safe space for you.
Exactly.
And you've done that. And I know multiple women that you've connected with that way. And between you and I, a friendship blossomed from that.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, this was how many years ago? 2018 or something? 2019?
I think it was before. It was either right before the pandemic or
It was before.
Okay, so it was like 2019.
Oh,
then.
wait.
No, I think it was a couple.
No, because
months
you had to rent a place.
Yeah, I
and
rented
like
an
stagger
Airbnb.
people to like keep everybody safe and like separate.
I think it was like. I think it was a few months into the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. But yeah, you were like one of my first clients.
Yeah. But it's just fun that like so much time has gone by and we've continued to like support and empower each other. And I always feel that way with you. And it's from a lot of different things. I mean, we've hardly even talked about photography since.
Yeah.
It's just like your passion to like learn what's really going on and like give a voice to that. And you like look me in my eyes and you listen and you always like follow up. And that's just like, I really appreciate that. I appreciate that about our friendship. And I just appreciate that about you as a person. And you hear something and you're like, I want to chase that story. And
Yeah.
I love that about you.
Well, I love all the love. So much love in this room.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been incredible being friends with you, and you always call out my bullshit, so I love it. I don't like having yes people around me, so it's good to have support, but it's also good to have people that call you out on your shit when you need it.
Honesty is good.
Yeah. So why this really sparked is you had twin boys. And you had a horrible, horrible birthing experience. And you sent me a voice memo, like a 10-minute voice memo going through it. And I'm like, are we going to start crying?
I know, me too.
I can't.
I just like took a deep breath. I'm like,
Yeah. And I have tissues here.
you know what though? I feel like it's funny when you get together with women that have had children. I don't think that I'm abnormal. I think that we're just hushed.
Oh, 100%.
Because once you get in a group with women, everybody has a couple like glasses of wine or something. We all just start spilling like, I'm supposed to just swallow this and go on because I'm a mother, whether I like work at home, I run my household, or whether I'm trying to be a working mother and be present for my children and like still have a relationship with my husband and still like take care of my extended family and have friendships outside of my kids. We get together and I've noticed there's like a dumping that occurs, like there needs to be a place where women are like, it's okay that was so scary.
Yeah.
And also like, why didn't we talk about that ahead of time? And so I've been trying to, like, my voice is a little shaky because I feel emotional. I've been trying to talk to the women that I love that are getting pregnant and not scare them, but be like, let's talk about some things that might happen. And separately, I've talked to like their partners, like, here's some things that you can do to support your partner in this. Because why are we not making sure that partners are prepared for what could happen during childbirth or after? Because we talk about like what to expect, but it's all about the child. And obviously that is so important, like what to expect, how to introduce bottles and how to latch, and okay, how long should they be sucking on a binky, and then when you remove it to help with their palate, and when to introduce foods. That is the whole conversation. The conversation isn't about the mommy.
Yeah.
And once the baby comes, everyone's like, oh my God, baby, how'd baby do? Well, mommy's like not good, but like nobody's checking in on her.
Yeah. And if mom's not good, babies probably aren't thriving like they should be.
Yeah. And I am so in tune with myself and my mental health and with this conversation prior to even thinking about having children. But when it was my turn and it happened, even when I found out I was pregnant, I went into this like disassociation to like keep the cortisol level down in my body, to like keep my kids safe, because I had a high risk pregnancy with twins. And that first appointment I went into, they're like, we can't tell if they're sharing an amniotic sac or not. My voice is so shaky.
It's okay. Well, and I just going back real quick, exactly like you said, like everyone thinks that they're alone. And I saw that doing my boudoir photography, every single mom, every single one that came in was so ashamed of their stomach. Like, I have a mom tummy.
Yeah.
I'm like, just so you know, every mom has a mom tummy. And they're like, really?
But on social media, people hide it.
Yeah. And it's like, I think we just, as a culture, need to really turn things around and start celebrating life.
Yes.
Like having
that woman created life.
Exactly.
Every single person, by the way, that is in office was birthed and supported by his mother. So his mother, I said his, but like that's why women need to be in office, because like we run this world. We created this world.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll get to more of the political side later, because I definitely have some thoughts. Like even there's a U.S. House of Representative that just had a baby, and she was denied voting through a proxy or through just virtually
Because she couldn't physically be there.
because she just had a kid.
Yeah.
And so
Her body
she
just got ripped open.
literally, so there was an important vote that happened. And even though I disagree with her, I just don't agree with her political beliefs, but
It doesn't matter.
it
You
doesn't
believe in
matter.
the freedom of being able to vote, whether you just got ripped open or not.
Exactly. And she
men don't
was,
have to
and
worry
she
about
went
that.
on a plane and like a month into after just having a child.
Just dangerous.
Exactly. And yeah, and went and voted. And it just is a shame.
So she either had to bring her child with her if she was
which you can't have a
breastfeeding,
newborn on a plane. Like that's crazy.
and you're exposing them to all this circulated air, and airplanes are not clean.
Yeah.
And
I could go on about this.
Yeah.
I'm an independent, and I like being an independent because like I can have some ideas. I think there are good ideas on the left and there are good ideas on the right. And I don't even hear the left talk about this anymore, but about like paid maternity leave.
Yeah.
I haven't heard people talk about that in a while.
Yeah.
And everything that I've learned recently, I went down a rabbit hole on breast milk. And breast milk is a miracle in itself, just miracle. Formula will never compare. It is not a replacement for breast milk, because breast milk, you are building your baby's immune system, and your body can actually tell if your child is getting sick, and it makes the immunity specifically for that child. It's a miracle. And moms having to go back to work, well, even if you produce enough breast milk to save and stuff, it's not the same as getting it in the moment, because your body tailors it to that exact moment. There's a difference between daytime, morning breast milk and nighttime breast milk. Nighttime actually, do you know the chemical that's produced? I always forget what it is, but at night the breast milk actually changes. So
is it melatonin?
is that what it is for the
know if
baby?
it's in the breast
Maybe,
milk.
but
yeah,
but it gets them
on,
sleepy. So you don't want to give morning breast milk to your child at night, So, but I can go on about that. Like if we are going to celebrate life and, want to make more babies, we need to make it possible for families to have kids. And that means...
and have support
Yeah.
before the children arrive and after the children arrive, for the family, for the child, but also for the women.
Yes.
For the mothers.
Yep. So let's get into that more. So let's kind of like go through a timeline. So
Yeah.
were you trying to get pregnant?
Yeah, so I feel like we, as the United States, it's slowly turning into an epidemic of infertility. And I have so many people that I'm very close with, including my family members, that have multiple losses. And it's important to not say the word miscarriage, because it is putting that pressure on the mother. So they say it's good to use the word loss, because it isn't necessarily the woman's fault.
Yeah.
It could be something with the sperm. It could be something with the egg. It could be something with the way that the zygote and the embryo started to create, and the body tells you like, this isn't healthy, this isn't good, like we need to pass. But that is passing of a life and a child, and it is devastating.
Yeah.
And so many women in my life have been going through this. And I've wondered, I haven't looked up the numbers. I think that could be an important thing to maybe fact check and add into like the intro or comment section of your podcast. But what are the increased cases of infertility and of losses that we've been experiencing?
So I actually did look into
Did
this.
you? Okay. And I have opinions as to why it's happening.
Well,
I think it's like pesticides and what we're eating and the lifestyles that we have now.
The only data I could find is how long it takes a woman to get pregnant. That's really it. So, and they say...
So there's not data potentially not data on the number of losses and how that has increased over time?
I don't think so. I can look into it again, but when I was looking into it, the only thing I could find, like in terms of fertility rates, is it takes about a year for most women to get pregnant. And that really hasn't changed, it says, but I really doubt that. I really think that there is just not enough data. And people that have followed me know that I'm a very big data person. Like, I love looking up facts.
Yeah.
And
But this is part of, like, it's a woman run. It needs to be, women need to be more important in medical research.
yes.
And in like, people are not studying the female body enough, and people are not like, this is a really important problem that's happening in our society. Let's make sure we track it. That effort is not there.
Yeah. And so I don't think I've ever researched a topic before without finding enough data on it. So overall, I started looking like through a whole bunch of numbers, which I can actually read through real quick.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Hold on. So I looked up gestational diabetes. That's up. So in the 1980s, it was estimated to be 1%. In 2011, it was 4.7%. In 2019, 6.3%. But it's not like even studied every year, kept track of. What is really alarming to me is C-sections are up. In the 1970s, it was about 5.5% of births were through C-section. In 2003, so some people like to say, like, we didn't have enough research back then. Okay, so here's more recent. 2003, it was 27%. In 2023, it was like a third of all births. So it still has gone up in recent history too. And why that's so important, the book Good Energy by Kaylee and Cassie Means, she is a doctor. She says that a lot of women who have births through C-section often have a problem producing milk because the process of birthing naturally just sparks it in your body. Okay, it's time to produce. And I think it's also something like that helps also build the baby's immune system going through
It's
the
really good for the baby to go through the birth canal.
Yeah.
For their skull, it's supposed to squish to go through, and then everything like lays differently.
Oh, wow.
And they say children that have C-sections have problems with like ADHD and like cognitive issues because they didn't go through what their skull is supposed to do going through the birth canal.
Wow.
Because of the way that they got pulled out. And I remember like one of my kids had like a shelf, and I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, it is normal, but he was supposed to go through the birth canal and have like his, because you have the different bones in your skull that are not connected yet as a child, and that's actually healthy for the blood flow in your brain.
I didn't know that.
And so I've been looking into it about doing like fascial releases and things throughout their life to make sure to help with blood flow in their head and their brain since they're C-section babies.
Well, I'm glad you're on top of that.
I've been looking into it, and the way that the doctors suggested that this is the course of action, I definitely want us to chat about that once you're done going through your numbers.
So, okay, so then maternal mortality, which we spend more than any other country per capita on healthcare. So you think that we'd have like the best in the world. All of these numbers should be improving, but maternal mortality in 2000 was 12 deaths per 100,000 births. In 2023, it went up from 12 to 18.6. And what's really insane is that for Black women, it's 50 per 100,000. For white women, it's 14 per 100,000. So a huge disparity there. Why are women dying more when we're supposed to have the best medicine in the world? Like, we pay for the best medicine in the world, but we don't get it. And that is just, it's unacceptable.
Absolutely.
It's unacceptable. And then, I haven't had kids yet. And one of the biggest things that has made me not want to have kids is thinking about the cost. because, you know, I hear from so many people like online and stuff and they show their medical bill. Like you even get charged to have skin to skin contact with your child. That is insane. Luckily, one of my friends had a baby a couple years ago and she went to a birthing center. So it's all cash you have to pay, but like, you know how much it costs going in and everything.
Luckily, with my insurance, and that was part of my discussion with the place that I chose to work at, was what is the insurance and the support for maternity leave. And so my bill was 80 grand after delivering the boys. And then they both were in the NICU for 2 weeks. Wow. So it's like 2 weeks each. And then my hospital bill and then my delivery bill, it was 80 grand, but it was covered by my company.
Okay.
So like
completely?
I'm lucky, completely covered.
Wow.
And I'm really lucky for that. And because it was a high risk pregnancy, I was going in every week by the end of it, but it was like once a month, and then it was every other week, and then it was every week. A lot of appointments. And then at the end, it was like a couple times a week.
Wow.
And all of that was covered. So, but a lot of women don't have that choice.
Yeah. So the average cost, if you do a vaginal birth, which is just insane to me, is 30 grand. Mm-hmm. Like, for what?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
to push a kid out of your
coochie. And I'm pretty sure moms go home like the same day or the next day with a vaginal birth. Yeah. So it's like, what is 30 grand for? Mm-hmm. A C-section is 50 grand. And the average with insurance is 3,400. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you already have to like pay for everything with the child, diapers and everything, but here's a bill for 3,400. Welcome to the world.
And I feel like women that I am lucky to have been raised in the family that I was raised in, to have the education that I had, to have the ability to pay for my education, and I work in oncology research, and to be able to have a good job and to have that insurance, like I'm lucky that I had that option. Mm-hmm. And that's the only reason why I work for a good company with good insurance. I know that is not the norm. Yeah. And so women that maybe, if you're talking about women, the maternal death rates, there's women that are probably scared to go to the hospital or scared where to give birth to their child because they don't want to get stuck with a bill that they won't be able to afford and to pay for. And then that could put their life at risk and their child's life at risk.
Yeah, I literally told my husband, like, honestly, like, a backseat birth might not be so bad. Like, I'm just saying, just skip the hospital and you're
backseat. Good. God, I follow this group on Instagram that is home births, and I just sob every time I watch it. And I wish that I did have the opportunity. I'm not going to say I wish I had the opportunity. I did have the opportunity if I really wanted to, but you know what? No, I didn't. I didn't go into labor.
Okay. So let's go back in time.
We should go through my
So you
history.
Get pregnant.
Yes.
Okay. How was it? Did you have morning sickness? Like, how was it first getting pregnant?
So because of the infertility that all of these women in my life were experiencing, I was obsessed with preparing.
Okay.
So I had been on birth control for like 13 years, and I was talking to my gynecologist about it, and she's like, we want to get off of that and we want your body to reset for a couple months. Well, being the extra crazy person that I am, I'm like, I'm going to do 12 months. I'm going to do a full year before we even talk about it. And we're not going to drink any alcohol, and we're not going to do anything else. If anybody partakes in marijuana or whatever, for both my husband and myself. And so I was really trying to like get my body as healthy as possible. And I went through like a withdrawal when I went off birth control. Like I was so emotional. My hands were sweaty. Wow. I like laid in bed sobbing, thinking about my dog who's like right there with me. Like I'm like, Sasha, I love you. And I was like sobbing about, I remember I was laying in bed thinking about being a child, looking up at the stars from my childhood home and being like, man, those were like the simple days. Like that was like going off of birth control.
What birth control were you on?
Oh God, is it bad that I don't remember?
Well, is it like a pill or did you have the
Oh yeah,
arm?
yeah, the pill.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had an IUD, but I didn't have any withdrawals getting off of it. So that's so
It
interesting.
was wild.
But hormones,
And I'm
man.
glad that I did, though. I'm glad, like, I feel like I needed that, and I'm glad
Yeah.
that I did that. So then, tracking my period, tracking ovulation cycles, and just really, like, trying to learn about my body that way. I spent a lot of time, like 6 months, really, like, paying attention to, like, my cycle. And then when we did get pregnant, I was like, something feels weird. And it was, like, 3 or 4 days where I'm like, I swear I'm pregnant. And I kept taking tests and they were negative because it was too early.
Yeah.
So it's like 5 days before your missed period is when you can like show up on like a
Pregnancy
P test. Yeah, a pregnancy test. And so I was like crabby and my skin felt weird and I wanted chocolate and I like kept like, we got Thai food and I was like, "Ugh," and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like I was like gagging before I had a positive test. And I'm like, man. And I remember I have a really cool neighborhood and I love the neighborhood kids. And one of them like knocked on my door and I texted his mom and was like, tell your kid to leave me alone. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I got in the car and I went to the store and I got a different test and I waited until that next day. It was a Monday morning because I was supposed to start my period that Friday. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, it's just a faint line. And I put it down and I was sad and I'm like, oh, thought I was going to be pregnant. I was really excited. I swear I had all these symptoms and I'm driving to work and I'm like, wait, because it was like 5 a.m. and I think I was like Delulu. Like, I'm like, oh my God, wait, this is happening. I don't know what was happening. I'm driving to work and I'm like, wait. And I get to work and I'm sitting in that cubicle and I'm sweating. And I messaged my best friend and I called her and she's like, Kate. And I'm like, is a faint line mean? And she's like, you're pregnant, dude. And I'm like, she's like, send me a picture. And I'm like, I didn't even take a picture of it.
Oh my
I just drove to work. So all day I'm freaking out at work. And then I drive home and I'm FaceTiming her and I show her the stick. She's like, bro, you are so pregnant.
Oh,
so that's my first test 5 days prior. And when I showed my sister, she's like, it's twins. Because she had been pregnant with twins a year before me.
Wow.
And she's like, if it's that strong of a line, like the first day that you can test positive and you're having all of these symptoms already. I was having, they call it like lightning crotch when it's hormones coming from your uterus that are like shooting down. And I'm like, whoa. And she's like, you're having that already? She's like, it's twins.
Stop.
Yeah. So we kind of were joking that it was twins. And then they don't let you come in for an ultrasound until like 9 weeks or something. Mm-hmm. And so at 9 weeks we go in and I was really nervous because of all these experiences that my women in my life are having. And my sister had a lot of losses too. And she was like, prepare for the worst. And so I'm looking at the screen and I'm like, I feel like that's a gummy bear. Like it looked like a little gummy bear. And I'm like, I feel like there's a gummy bear, but the doctor's not saying anything. And I'm like, I remember I was like sweating and I was like, is there a heartbeat? Is everything okay? And she's like, oh, there's a heartbeat. There's 1 and there's 2. And I was like, oh my God. And Dylan's like, we have to look at our budget. It's like the first thing he said. Not like, oh babe. He's like, oh God, we got to look at our budget. There's 2.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Priorities.
So it was exciting, but I was like, oh my God, I knew that this was going to happen. But the statistics of sisters getting pregnant with twins within a year of each other.
And you guys don't have twins in the family, do you?
We do. But,
okay.
But from what I've learned, identical twins are like a freak accident.
Oh, okay.
Like, so it's like one sperm, 1 egg that split.
You guys both had identical?
She had fraternal.
Oh, okay.
So I had identical. So it's actually not genetic. Yeah. She had 2 eggs that were released that were fertilized. Mm-hmm. So that is genetic. Gotcha. And I do have cousins that are twins and we're not sure if they're fraternal or identical. So it is in the family. She had it, but my case, it's actually just like a surprise, like an accident. Yeah. And it's like, I love it though. I love having twins.
Wow.
So we go to, should I say where I work at?
Totally. You don't have to. Just the hospital.
Yeah. So the hospital system that I work for, they have a cancer center. I work at the cancer center doing oncology research. They are like one of the biggest universities and health systems in the state. And I went there for my appointment because they were like, we need to figure out if they are sharing a placenta or sharing a sac. So it's like mo die. Like it puts like the risk level on the children, and it helps the doctors make decisions based on if they're sharing a placenta and they're sharing an amniotic sac, that is the more higher risk twin pregnancy. If they have separate amniotic sacs and separate placentas, that is the safer twin pregnancy, which is what my sister had. Her
That's
children.
so interesting.
Yeah.
So if you have different sacs, could you actually give birth at different times?
Oh, I don't think so.
Because that's like so interesting to me.
That is really interesting. I mean, I obviously I don't know, but like that's a good thing to look up. But so for my sister, one of the children ended up passing away. Oh. But because she had her own environment, sister was able to be safe.
Okay.
And the doctor said your body might try to get rid of the first child that had passed. So like prepare, but everything went fine and she was able to carry and like full term. I think she was a couple weeks early. But she was able to deliver and her child was safe. But so because my children shared a placenta, when we went to the hospital, they did like a deeper look and they were like, they're separate sacs and a shared placenta. So it's like a mo-di twin pregnancy. And my sister's like, everything will be fine unless they take you into a separate room with a box of tissues. And they took me into the separate room with the box of tissues. And they're like, okay, we need to talk about what could happen. And I sat there with this frog in my throat and I'm looking at the guy and I'm trying to listen. And I'm at 12 weeks, maybe not even 12 weeks. Maybe it was 12 weeks into the pregnancy. Wow. And he kept using the word demise. And he's like, here's all the things that could lead to the demise of one or both of your kids. So from the get, I'm like, oh, F. Like, and I'm trying to like keep, like, I really was obsessed with like low stress. Yeah. Stay calm. I have a high risk pregnancy. I don't want to stress out my body and my children. Like, do everything you can. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God. So because they share their blood source, and both of their umbilical cords are in the same blood source, one can pull from the other baby and pull hemoglobin, he can pull blood, he can pull amniotic fluid, and it could lead to a neurological episode or like a cardiac episode that will hurt the one, demise.
To me, that's great. That's just another thing. It's like women's medical is just awful. Like why did he think that was okay to talk to a pregnant woman like that?
But he had to tell me like what could be. I know that he had to. Okay. He had to tell me what could be expected of the course of my pregnancy,
but and why we need more appointments and what.
Maybe he could use a better word. I'm glad he didn't use a different D word because that would have been awful to hear. But he had to. He had to educate me.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he did. But like, I think there should have been further education. I feel like I didn't get enough education. And from that day, I went into this disassociative state to stay calm and to just take it day by day and to just like handle my, I was like sick. I didn't feel good. And I was working. I have a really hard job that requires a lot of brain energy. And I was just like trying to get through it. And I am usually such a researcher and educator, and I so work hard at empowering myself and the people around me just like you do. And I was like, I can't handle it. I can't look into the what ifs because I'm going to spiral. Like I was trying to hold it together mentally and physically, but mentally. I was letting my body do what it knows to do. And I was just trying to keep it together. So, going back to my original gynecologist, who is mine, he was a specialist. Going back to my gynecologist, I'm like, so what's the birth plan? What are my options? She's like, C-section. She's like, you want to do a C-section? And I was like, okay. And I just listened to her because I wasn't in a state to be like, let's talk about everything. They weren't like, here's resources that we provide for mom and dad. And I know that there's like birth classes and stuff, but they were like, you might have to deliver early. Like they're like, you most likely won't go into labor. You might have to deliver early because of your...
your doctor should be your advocate.
Yes.
But it sounds like women have to be their own advocate.
Yes. Absolutely.
And like we pay them
Yeah.
to be the experts.
Yeah.
And yet to actually advocate for yourself, you need to become an expert of your own. And that's just not right.
I I walked in one day. So many appointments in between. Like they thought it's called twin to twin transfusion syndrome when the one's stealing from the other.
Okay.
They thought that was happening like before my viability date, which is like if I did deliver, they wouldn't survive. And so they were like, we're going to have to go in and do an ablation and separate the placenta so they can't steal blood from each other because we think that that's happening. And that could lead to the neurological or cardiac problem. And then that almost happened. By the way, it was like during the week of one of my best friend's wedding, and I was her maid of honor. Oh. And they're like, you might have to get a laser ablation this week. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be standing in a wedding this weekend.
Oh my gosh.
It ended
How
up not
far
happening.
along were you?
It was in June. So I got pregnant in March and it was June. And
So pretty early.
yeah. And my due date was December.
Wow.
And my viability date was August. So by August, they were like, so I didn't end up having to do it because the boys corrected it. Thank God. I kept talking to them. I'm like, share, don't steal, be good boys. I was like praying to my ancestors, like the whole pregnancy. And they protected me.
They listened.
They did.
Listened to mom.
They did. They protected my boys and me. And I'm so thankful for that. But, so in August, they were like, boys can come any day. And it was like 28 weeks and on that they're like, they can come any day. And so they usually with twins don't let you go past 38 weeks because they get so big and all these complications that could happen. And they're like, they're fully developed and it's safe to deliver at that time. So we had all of these appointments. And one of the appointments I came in towards the end, the doctor sat down and goes, tell me what you need to know. I remember him saying to me, because I had a plethora of physicians, which by the way, I'm like pretty proud of that practice because this is still like the hospital system that I work at that I'm so honored and proud to work at. And I trusted them. And I compared it to like a math teacher sitting you down and being like, tell me what you need to know.
It's like,
you're like, I don't know anything. I don't even know anything about what you're talking about. I don't even know the equations or theories that you were going to teach me. So how do I even know what questions to ask?
Yeah.
And that's how I felt. I don't know what questions to ask because I wasn't in a good mental place to be like, what are my options? Mm-hmm. Because they weren't sitting me down and going, here are your options. Let's talk through all of it. Here are your medication choices. Here's your delivery. Like, if we're going to do an induction, they weren't sitting me down and talking about like everything that would happen with an induction. I had to ask the questions.
What is that?
So like going into labor naturally is like your body, it's the oxytocin is the hormone that like pushes your uterus to contract and deliver the baby. Mm-hmm. With induction, you induce labor. It's a synthetic oxytocin, which is Pitocin, and it goes into your body. And it's worked for a lot of women. I'm curious about the induction rates, by the way, because I'm pretty sure they're like pushing babies out now.
100%.
Like C-section or induction. I'm sure both are huge.
I think that's why C-sections are so high right now because
they're like, let's get you in and out.
They want you in and out because then they can make more money. They don't want people sitting in the hospital. They don't want you to be in 72 hours of labor because that's like getting you in and out is going to be more profitable for them. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think that like after a little bit, they're like, okay, C-section, like we're going to induce you. It doesn't work C-section, even though like sometimes it just takes time and they're not allowing women to just go through the process naturally. Like obviously like there's going to be complications every now and then for people. And that's where we have C-sections and stuff, but like that shouldn't be a first option. And that's what it seems like for a lot of people.
And they were talking to me in August around 28 weeks or whatever the time frame was where you could, the conversation where I could deliver any day. They had multiple meetings with me about the NICU. And like because my children would have to be in the NICU for like months if I did deliver that early. So they were telling me like, do you want to do if you don't produce breast milk right away, are you okay with donor breast milk? Are you okay with formula? Like, we had all of these conversations about, like, since I had boys, they're like, do you want to do the snip snip for the boys? Like, what apparently they have to get my permission for, like, life saving, like, if anything happens to your child, do you want us to do anything we can to save your child's life? Like, they had to get all of that in writing from the get. But there was no conversation about me. I appreciate, you need to ask all those things about my children.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you educated me about, like, the care for my children, but there was zero conversation about my care.
Yeah.
And what my options were. Nobody told me the delivery options. They said from the get C-section, and I went, okay. And I told everybody, they told me C-section. And because I was in that kind of walled mental, like, just trying to survive this pregnancy place, I didn't ask the questions I feel like I needed to ask until the end. One of the physicians at the end was like, you'd be a great candidate for an induction. And I'm like, we're like past 30 weeks here.
Wow.
I've been in this, like, I've been mentally preparing for a C-section this whole time. And now you're telling me I'd be a great candidate for an induction.
Wow.
And he's like, you're really healthy. Your boys are going to be really small, like the delivery. But I said, okay, well, what things could go wrong? So they were both head down. And he was like, you'd be a great candidate. They're small. They're both head down. But so baby A is closer to the exit. Baby B is, like, right behind them. And they said something that could happen is when baby A delivers, baby B can turn around and then he's breech. And if he can't come out that way, we have to reach in and flip him around, or we have to pull him out by his legs, which is not great for mommy or baby. Another thing that could happen because they share a placenta is when baby A comes out, the placenta could say, oh, I did my job. Like, your body, usually there's, like, a time in between the twin delivery. I did my job. I don't need to provide oxygen anymore. And then it, like, stops providing oxygen. And then baby B loses oxygen.
Gotcha.
And that's where we could have a rushed emergency C-section where they put me under.
Yeah.
And they have tried to empower women by doing C-sections where you're awake and you can be part of the birth still. And there is, like, a way to be empowered by that. But there's also, like, scary trauma happening of, like, you're wheeled into the OR and you're laying there and nobody's talking to you. Everybody's talking to each other. Nobody's talking to the mom.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. But anyway, I didn't know that induction was an option. I should have. I'm an intelligent woman. I'm an educated. I should have. But I was just in this, like, I can't think any further than what's happening today. And even when I went in for an appointment, it was 34 weeks and 3 days. And they're like, you're delivering your kids today.
Yeah. I remember you texting me. I feel like, was it the day? I doubt it was the day of, but you were just like, I went in and they said it's time.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
but by the way, we made it really far. Like, that was good. Like, that's a good, safe time. They say after 32 weeks, like, the survival rate is really high. Like, it's a good, safe time. And they're like, we think twin to twin is happening. We're delivering today. The risk is lower. Like, let's do it. And so I'm like, oh my God, okay. So it's 8 a.m. I'm by myself at the hospital. Dylan, I went to so many appointments. I'm like, you don't have to come with me to all these appointments. So my husband, Dylan, I text him and I'm like, get out of bed, get the car seats in the car and come to the hospital. And I was an hour away and I'm sitting there shaking. I'm sitting there in, it wasn't pre-op yet. It was triage. And they come in, they're like, okay, so we're going to prepare for an induction. And I'm like, what? And the person's like, yeah, you're having an induction. I was like, wasn't I supposed to have a C-section? And they're like, you want to have a C-section? Like, the day that I delivered, people were like, why would you have a C-section? Which made me go like, oh my God, am I doing the wrong thing? I'm just listening to my doctor.
Wow.
My doctor from way back when I learned I was pregnant that told me, like, you should have a C-section. That's the safest thing to do.
Wow.
And because of we might have to pull him out by his legs, the placenta might shut down. I was just like, I guess this feels like it's more risky for me, but less risky for them. And that's what I want. I want to protect the boys as much as possible. And even on the day of, they're like, why would you have a C-section? And I'm like, oh my God. This is, like, not the right time to have this conversation. We should have been having this conversation for months. You should have sent me to a class And so I could learn everything that could happen. So I know what my options are and I know what my choices are.
Yeah.
Why is that not happening? Why is it the day
Yeah.
of?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So walk me through so you go to the hospital. Weren't you just there for a checkup that day?
Yeah. So it was just, I was at that point, since we were so close to the end, they wanted me to come in once or twice a week and do, they check the blood flow in the umbilical cord to make sure that it's only going from the placenta to the kid and not the other way. Okay. And they check like the blood flow in the brain and the blood flow in the liver. It was pretty cool.
How do they do that? Just ultrasound?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
And they can like test, they can test what's going on. They look to make sure like the bladder is filling. They make sure that the stomach is filling. Like, it's pretty cool what they can do. Wow. And so I went in there and they were like, okay, we think twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome might be happening. So we're going to deliver today. Because we were in the safer place of being further along, and they're like, it was 34 weeks and 3 days. And I was like, okay, that's time. And I was really proud of how far we got. Like, because I was told multiple times it might be way earlier than that, or that we wouldn't make it. So I was really excited about that. They take me to pre-op, and Dylan is still not there. Oh, and I call him, and I was really scared. I was scared about childbirth, however it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Which I also think it's okay for women to say that. Like, this is freaking scary.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm terrified of that.
It's scary. I thought about it my whole adult life. Yeah. Like, I'm scared to have kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay to say that. Mm-hmm. Your body knows what it's doing, but also it's like my first time my body has ever done that.
You know what I'm also scared of, which I really should not be, especially considering I used to be a boudoir photographer, is I'm scared of like the public, just how like the perception after like for mom, because it's always, the conversation is always like, well, why didn't she bounce back? And I don't want to deal with that. Like, that's just crazy to me that's even a part of the conversation, knowing how much the body goes through.
Your body and your mind. Because if you're returning to work, they're like, get right back to it. Well, your brain has changed. The way that you think has changed, and your priorities have changed. Yeah. Like, trying to go back to work when you're worried about your kid being alive, or like postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, trying to pump when you're at work, trying to have, like, I work at a hospital and I deal with source documents that have been touched in like a lab somewhere with like blood and tissue. And I'm like, it's not sanitary at my desk. So then you have to go into this like creepy separate room to pump. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the cost, like everything, and actually the one thing that doesn't scare me, that scares a lot of people, is traveling with your kids. I actually don't think I would mind that. Like, we
travel a lot with the boys.
Yeah, it's just like you're just gonna come with us, and like,
you have to be so careful though. That's the thing, is like the safety, like not only like the car seats, but like people wanting to, God, I don't want to be like, people wanting to like take your kids. Yeah. And with twins, everybody's obsessed with them. Everybody talks to them. Everybody wants to touch them. I had newborn kids in Costco, and people were like, can I touch your kid? And I'm like, get away from me. Get away from my kid.
I try to think about what I would want or not want if I was pregnant, and try to respect those boundaries for people who are. So like, I would jump someone if they tried to touch my belly. I would jump someone. Like, don't touch me. Okay. Like,
I had multiple strangers that would rub my stomach, and I'm like, I don't even know you. What are you doing?
I don't get that. I don't get why people think that's okay.
Or that ask you all the questions. Like, sitting at a chiropractor office. I went to a chiropractor when I was pregnant. And this older man was like, are you pregnant? And I was like, yes. Well, is it a boy or a girl? How far along are you? How much weight have you gained?
See, I don't.
And I'm like, you're a stranger in a doctor's office. What are you doing?
And I don't ask any of that unless the person opens up that door, because
they're like a tight, close confidant of yours.
Because I know that pregnant women are getting those questions every single day from strangers and are probably really annoyed. So I do not bring it up. Like, we can obviously tell you're pregnant at a certain point. Like, we don't need to have a whole conversation about it. Like, unless you, like, we're friends, you know, like, that's different.
Right.
But like,
I wouldn't care about you asking me those questions.
Yeah.
But an old man in a waiting room at a doctor's office, it's like, bro. Also, like, I'm trying to, like, protect myself. Like, people are also, like, a little bit fetished about, like, pregnant people. So, like, I have to protect myself and not divulge too much because, like, who knows what could happen.
Yeah, I remember someone saying online that there were people that, I think she was like an OnlyFans person, and she was like, the amount of money I was offered to give pictures of like my children and like the birth, and she didn't do it. She was like, that was where she drew the line.
Yeah. Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, that is so creepy.
Yeah.
People are just so crazy.
Yeah.
It's just insane. So yeah, I'm definitely one that's, I'm never like, don't ever post your kids online or anything.
I have been trying to protect my kids. So from the get, I was really excited and I didn't think about it. But if you think about, people post that, here's my child. This is the day they were born. This is how much they weighed. This is their first, middle, and last name. This is where they were born at. This is the day we brought them home. Like, you learn from day one all of this really specific information about this child's identity.
Yeah.
And now in our parents didn't have the internet or social media to do that back then, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I know that you're younger than me, but but now people know so much about a children's life. You can tell what city that they live in depending on the park that they're at, or like the little sign that you hold on the first day of school, like, I'm so and so, this is my teacher, this is how old I am, like, this is the school that I'm at. You learn all of this, and so there's identity theft that's happening from children because you have their face identity and you have all of this very specific personal information that you learn from the get.
Wow.
So I was posting about my kids, and then my husband and I sat down and we were like, our kids are so cute and we're obsessed with them, and I want to tell everybody, but like their digital identity is more important in the long term. When they're 18, they could post whatever they want about themselves, but what if my child is private and I've posted half naked photos of them their whole life?
Yeah.
And like, my family loves social media. My mom, Ann Flynn, I know how much you love social media. She is distraught that she can't post pictures of my kids.
Well, you can send me photos of your children anytime.
I text, so I'm like, you can text all your friends. You can send, I send photos and videos, like, to all of the people that I love, like, as much as possible, because I think my kids are awesome and I love to talk about them, but it doesn't need to be on the internet.
Yeah.
It's okay to not do that. Yeah. As much as we want the likes and the comments and look how cute my kids are, look how cute my grandkids are, their safety is it's more important.
See, back in the day, you just like walk outside to your neighbor and go talk to them about it. Like, you don't need to do it online. So, I know. Yeah.
So we're like, things that I think parents, it's a new generation of like things that you need to do to protect your children.
Yeah.
And the internet and having nonstop access to everything. It's a whole different world, I think, for parenting now.
Yeah, and I am gonna be a psycho mom. I already know it. My kids are gonna have a flip phone like I did. Me and my brother, when I was in middle school, me and my brother shared a flip phone. And whoever had sports that night got the phone.
Yep. That's why we got our flip phones too.
Yeah.
Was for like, hey, the practice got changed to this time and this is the time I need you to pick me up.
Yeah. And so when I was in high school, I think that's when we started all getting our own phones and stuff. But I mean, that was pretty like later on. But yeah, these kids like in elementary school, they don't need a smartphone or anything. I understand the safety of a phone, but it doesn't need to be a smartphone. It can be a dumb one that just calls, just text. That's it.
There's like parental protections now where they can only call like the numbers that you put in there, and they're not allowed to type in other numbers to call. Like, there are ways that you can protect your kids with their flip phone.
Okay.
Or with their whatever kind of phone you get them, where they can't download an app without like your password. And they can't text or call anybody other than like maybe it's grandma and mom and dad and grandpa or something. Yeah. And those are the only people that they're able to even call or text.
Yeah. My dream is that I'm going to get more property and I'm going to homestead and I'll homeschool, and they won't need to live their life on a cell phone because they'll be living their life in the real world. Like they'll be farming and stuff.
We'll
get some chickens.
If we go down this path, like I am all about like, do you want your child's life to be staring at a screen? Do you want your life to be like my life right now is I stare at a screen all day for work. And then you look at your phone and you communicate and you plan vacations or whatever, and you pay your bills staring at a phone and staring at a computer. And then at night you're watching TV, right? Where you stare at screens all day. Are we really like experiencing everything that the world has to offer? No. Talking from somebody, by the way, I know that I do that. I watch my shows. I tell myself, oh, if I do dishes and I get to watch Survivor, like it feels like I'm not doing a chore. I know that I do that, but I want to do everything I can I want my kids to go play in the dirt.
Yeah.
I want them to go play in the river. I want them to play in the rocks. I want them to go do that instead of like stare at their phones or their iPads or, there's a place for that.
Yeah.
But
and
I want
teen
to have
depression,
balance.
Teen hopelessness has sharply risen, and the graph is identical to the rise of smartphones. Like, so it's really harming people's children. And but I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but
I don't either.
So you went to the hospital.
Oh yeah,
that is so funny. Okay, so
I like that we do that though. It's fun.
Yeah. I think you said Dylan was coming.
Yeah. So they wheel me into pre-op, and I'm sitting there, and the nurse is like asking me questions, and they're like gonna do the IV on me, because any medication that they have to put in while I'm on the table in the OR, and so they are doing the IV, and they're like putting me in the gown, and we like take the last bathroom break and all that stuff. And she goes, I have to ask, like, do you have any, do you feel like you want to hurt yourself or hurt anybody else? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to kill my husband if he doesn't get here before I go into the OR. I was like so mad. Oh my God, I was so mad at him. I was like texting him being like, you've let me down for one last time. I was like being so dramatic. And then he walks in and I just burst into tears. And I'm like, I'm so glad you're here. I thought I was going to do this by myself. And I'm scared. So anyway, he gets dressed in his, head to toe PPE. He looks like, what's his name from Breaking Bad? Cooking meth. He's like got his like head to toe outfit on to go into the OR. And they wheel in the woman, the mom, first because they're going to do the epidural, and you do that without the partner there, which I think is an important thing to even know for both partners to learn before you go, that you're going to do this part alone. Yeah. And then they'll bring in your husband or your wife or your partner. And so I was in there and they told me to lean forward. They were trying to put the heart rate monitors on my stomach to get the baby's heart rates, but they also wanted me to like lean forward, but I'm on a table that's hiked into the air and I can't like lean my stomach was huge. Wow. And my feet are dangling. Yeah. And they're like, okay, so they put a rolly chair underneath my feet and they told me to lean forward. I'm like, I feel like I'm going to fall off this table. They missed 3 times and a shooting pain down my left leg. And I'm like, oh, and I'm swearing, I'm screaming, swearing into this OR. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Of course, I'm a woman that feels like I have to apologize for like a sharp pain happening in my body.
Did you ask for an epidural?
If you have to have one if you're having a C-section.
But at first they wanted to induce you, right?
Well, so I mean
like when did the conversation change?
So it was ultimately my choice if I did C-section or induction. I felt like I had prepared myself mentally this whole time, my whole pregnancy, for a C-section. They're only talking about the induction like the last couple weeks before my delivery. I felt like I didn't know enough. Yeah. And so I was like, no, I'm having a C-section. Mm-hmm. And I have been thinking about it now. My kids are almost 1.5 years old. I think about it all the time. I lay in bed thinking about it all the time, being like, should I have tried the induction? But it's in the past. I can't do it. It was the information that I had. I thought it was the safest for my kids. Yeah. And it did go well for my kids. My kids were safe. Everything was fine for them. And so I went off of the information that I had. So when they took me from just that appointment into triage, they were like, what are we doing? Are you doing well, they said, let's prepare you for your induction. They didn't even say, what are we doing? And I said, I thought I was having a C-section. They're like, oh, okay. Well, then let's prepare you for your C-section. Okay. And so that's why we went into the pre-op stuff. Because if I was going into an induction, they would take me to a delivery room. Mm-hmm. So then taking me to the OR is prepping me for the surgery. So if you have a C-section, you have to have like something to...
Yeah.
So you can't feel it.
Is it an option to just be like knocked out completely during a C-section?
Yeah, but that's why like women were missing the birth experience. Women were like this is I don't know what date they decided this, but it is newer to not allow or to allow women to be awake during the delivery.
I would rather be out.
Yeah, and you have that option.
To not have an epidural, like that alone, I would be happy with just putting me out, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the whole process, but like an emergency C-section, they knock you out because like you have to go fast.
Yeah.
And like baby's losing oxygen.
Yeah.
A planned C-section, which technically mine wasn't like this has to happen the second. Mm-hmm. It just has to happen sometime today.
Yeah.
They have to do the epidural. And then they finally got it, but I kept swearing and screaming, and they were like, just lean forward more. And I was like, so they lay you down.
So is the epidural, does it stay in, or is it just like a shot and it's done?
So an epidural is the tube that stays in, and then they can continually add more if needed, which is what they do usually if women want the epidural during a vaginal delivery.
Okay.
So that you can add more medication if needed, if it's like a long time. I don't know why I can't remember the word right now, but it's like just the shot where it's momentary, where they're paralyzing you for the next couple hours.
Gotcha.
That's the one that I got.
Okay.
I can't remember what it's called right now.
It's okay.
But it's technically an epidural, but I mean, not technically, but it's like an epidural, but the epidural is the tube that they can continually deliver if needed. I got just the shot, but if you see that needle, that's why the partner is not in the room.
Yeah. I'm not doing that.
And
it's either I'm doing vaginal all natural or they're knocking me out. There's no other option. There's no other option.
Oh, I know, but then you want to tell your friends this is my experience, but you don't want to scare the life out of them.
I know.
You know, like I want to educate, but I also don't want to like it's also amazing and I have the coolest kids ever and I would do it again today, but like I wish somebody told me. Yeah. Nobody told me.
I know.
The doctor didn't tell me.
Yeah.
I was like, can anybody give me like a Valium or something? By the way, they give you Valium for a vasectomy, but not like you can give me something like some laughing gas to calm my mind down because I was losing my mind. They lay you out. They're like, put your arms out. So they lay you out and I'm laying there like, so I started shaking because I think the medication that they give you makes you shake. Okay. And so I'm sitting there shaking. And so I'm starting to go numb and you feel like you can't breathe, but that's normal.
Wow.
Because you're losing like the feeling of your body. And I think it's like there's pressure that's occurring on your chest. And I've heard this is common for women to think like, oh, I think I'm having an allergic reaction. I feel like I can't breathe. But that's normal. But they don't tell you that. No. Nobody sits down and tells you what to expect. I wish somebody did. Wow. And I said, can somebody sit here and talk to me? And everybody's there's like 15 people because I had two. So there's two doctors delivering, two teams for like each child. Nobody's talking to me. Nobody's sitting here in my head talking to me. And so I started like screaming. And they brought Dylan in and Dylan's like, what's going on? And I'm like, ah! Because I'm like, my body started going into this like shock or something, or like, hey, something's wrong. And I was crazy.
You weren't crazy though. Like something was wrong. You knew it wasn't right.
Yeah. So he's holding my hand and I'm like, he's like, what do I do? And I'm like, just talk to me. I need somebody to just talk to me, tell me you love me, pet my hand, something. I think I was like rubbing his arm or something to try to just calm myself. Because they don't give you, like, give me a stress ball. They don't do anything for the mom to calm her down.
You know what's funny? When I got my IUD removed, I made a nurse come in and hold my hand just to get that removed.
Also, like, so much pain, and they don't give you any pain medicine for it. They send you home with Tylenol, right?
Yeah.
So, by the way, so I talked to a a woman recently. I was at a bachelorette party. She works in the OR. She assists in C-sections. And she's like, girl, they rip you open. She's like, I'm on the other side. I watch. They rip you open. And I'm like, oh, I know. And then they like pulled the kids out. The kids were great. So they showed me real quick, like over the whatever the barrier was. And then they had to take them right to their like separate little incubators and just like test and make sure everything's okay. And I was like trying to like find myself again. I swear I was like hovering over my body. I was in an alternate universe.
Yeah.
I think I was in shock. I think my body was saying, you're going to die. Your body's open.
Yeah.
Like it's your like neurological response to go into shock. Your body is open. There's a chance that you could die. This isn't right. It's not natural.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because your abdomen.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have pictures if you want to look at it.
No.
Are you
No, I'm
grossed
not
out? I have a picture of open with two umbilical cords coming out.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I learned that even though medical stuff fascinates me and I love reading research, I can never work in medical.
That's okay.
And I don't know what it is. I think it's actually genetic, believe it or not, because my brothers, they'll pass the fuck out if they see blood. Quick funny story. I have scars on my wrist because when I was like 13, I had an iPod and the alarm was going off and it fell between my bed and the window. So I pushed like first on the wall to move my bed over to get the iPod because the alarm was going off and being annoying. And then I adjusted my hand and it went on the window and I broke the window, trying to move my bed while the alarm's going off.
You had glass shatter like on your wrist?
Yes.
Oh God, that's
so
dangerous.
People probably think that I've cut myself, but I haven't. It's just like from that. But I go to my brother. My whole family is gone because my oldest brother was going to tour a college. So just my one brother was home with me. I don't think we even had a phone at the time. I had just had my iPod. So I go to my brother and I'm like, I have a cut. And he's like, it's just a paper cut. And he didn't even look at it. Like he's in bed, he's sleeping. He's like, it's just a paper cut. Go away. And so I go sit at the kitchen table with paper towel bleeding to death. You could literally, because you know the major vein is right there.
Yes.
You could literally see it.
Yes, you can.
I almost died. Like if it was any more, I would have died.
You can bleed out from there.
I would have died. But that vein was intact still, but you could see it.
You could oh my God.
It. And so my brother finally wakes up, comes out.
Let me guess, he passes out.
Passes out. He goes, oh, that's not a paper cut. And passes out. And
you're like, I got to keep it together. I got to figure out what to do.
And so my father comes home and at this point, I've lost so much blood, I'm on the ground.
Oh my God.
So my dad comes home and me and my brother are both passed out.
Oh my God.
So both of my brothers cannot do blood. They're both bad. My sister's pretty bad. But every time I go in for blood work, they can never find my veins. So they always poke the needle in, then move it around. And it's the worst pain ever.
So good.
And I've thrown up before because it was so bad.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not freaking people out that are listening to this, but
right.
I gotta have a disclaimer. So
trigger warning.
I think I used to be fine, but over time, just so many bad experiences with trying to give blood. Like I used to donate blood, but after so many bad times where they couldn't find the needle, now I'm just like, I'm over it. Yeah. I've watched, what is the show where they fix everyone's nose job and stuff? Botched. Okay. Some things in there freak me out. Like when they break someone's nose, I'm like, oh no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But I'm getting better. But I used to not have a problem. But the fact that like it's like my family, like everyone in my family is like that, it makes me wonder if it's genetic.
Probably.
Like I don't know. It's just weird. But
don't have the stomach for the gore, which is fine. I don't think that you need to. You're not in the medical field. You're not assisting in a surgery. It's fine.
Yeah. So that's just off limits for me.
Yeah. Well, if Ryan wants to see it, I'll show him.
Oh, he will.
Yeah. So now I'm in a state of shock.
Yeah.
where I think my body was telling me that I was dying. Mm-hmm. But I think that's like a way to your body to like protect itself. Mm-hmm. Like when you go into shock, you like lose like the blood from your extremities, and it like protects like your internal organs. And that's why like if people get into a car crash, they like can't talk because they're in shock, because your body's has this adrenaline and it's trying to mask the pain and it's trying to protect the organs. And I feel like that's what was happening to me. Mm-hmm. And they wheeled me by, so they finally like stitched me up. And they wheel me out of the room, and the boys are in, like, baby A. There's, like, a little piece of paper that says baby A and baby B. And they bring me by them, and they are fine. But they have stuff hooked up to them, and they have, like, little CPAPs and stuff. But, like, everything was going well. There was no immediate danger. And they're, like, they're holding the kids up to me. And I was, like, they're dying, and I'm dying. Like, my brain, it was just... I like almost can't even explain it, and it's all a blur. And I like touch their legs, and I remember like, don't cry, but like,
who cares?
I don't know, but I think I was just like, this is the last time you're gonna see them. This is the last time they're gonna see me. This weird stuff was going through my head, and I think this is normal for women that have C-sections, but I think people don't talk about it because you're supposed to just like celebrate that your kids are alive. So they wheeled me into post-op. And I'm sitting there, and that left leg wasn't moving.
Oh my god!
So like I start recovering. By the way, I threw up all over myself, which is fine. And I'm starting to recover, and I'm getting feeling in my right leg, but I can't feel my left leg. They're like, flex it, and I couldn't flex it. And they're like, okay. The nurse is like, that's not right. Let's get somebody to come check it out. They came and checked it out, and I was just like, I literally was like, I'm dying anyway. I didn't even say that. I was just in my head like, I'm dying anyway.
Wow.
Like, I can't feel my leg, but who cares?
Wow.
Like, this is my last day. Like, this sounds so morbid. But I was like, and then they wheeled me back to my room. And they wheel you away empty. I had been with these kids for 8 months in my body, feeling them. And then they wheel you into this room, and you're empty. And they're somewhere else in the hospital. I don't even know where they're at.
Yeah.
And I'm not even I couldn't even tell Dylan how I was feeling. Yeah. I didn't even know what to say. And I was just kind of sitting there. And I remember they kept asking me, like, what's your pain level? And I'm like, I was just like,
shock, whatever
numb
shock
and shock.
is.
And I'm like, I don't know. And I was scared. I was really scared because I'm like, well, I'm dying. So I put on an audiobook. I'm like, maybe if I listen to this audiobook, I can like distract myself. And I was trying to come back to myself. Yeah. I kept like, by the way, when I was on the table, I was like, and Dylan's like, stay with me, Kate. I'm not like on the table. I'm like, that's not helping.
Aww.
he thought I was dying too.
He was out.
Oh god. But so back at the like room, like post delivery.
Is he with you in the room?
Yeah, he was with me the whole time. After the delivery, and I'm in the room, and I turned on Harry Potter because I'm like, this will make me like I feel like a kid again. It'll make me feel better. I turned on Harry Potter, and it scared me to listen to Harry Potter.
Aww.
Because I was so frightened. I was so scared for my life. I thought I was dying. I thought my kids were dying. I couldn't even listen to like a childhood book that I had listened to for years. And I couldn't even tell Dylan what I was feeling. I didn't even say anything to him.
Yeah.
And they kept coming in and like, how are you feeling, Mom? And I'm like, I can't sleep. I'm scared. I don't feel good.
You don't have your kids.
It hurts. And they're like, okay. And they would just give me like my dose of Tylenol Tylenol and ibuprofen. They like rotated it. And I'm like, I'm really scared. Like, I'm not doing good. I'm scared. And they're like, okay. Like, scale of 1 to 10. What's your pain level scale? I'm like, I'm not good. And they're like, oh, you'll be okay. Here, we'll put some ice in this diaper and you can put the ice on your stomach. And I kept being like, I wish that somebody was asking like, you good, bro? Like they were asking my pain level to give me a medication, but they weren't even like, apparently it is a standard of care to do IV Benadryl. Okay. And it like knocks mommy out and it lets mommy rest. And and my sister had that. And I didn't know that was a standard of care thing. It was already in the script because I asked the doctor later. She had already placed the order. Wow. And it's like, it is normal for them to do that to help like you calm down and to help with the pain and to help you sleep. And I wish that I would have had that because now, I went through that whole first night. And then the next day I was like, I want to go see my kids. And so I walked I walked halfway to not the OR, the NICU. I walked halfway to the NICU because I was like determined. Like they're like, you got to get up and walk. And I'm like, my incision's like,
dude.
like,
And like, you didn't see your kids. You said the next day?
I saw them. I like touched feet and it was the next day. I haven't held anybody yet. And so I was just like, I really want to go to the NICU, like get this bag. Like I was catheterized. I
feel like that just adds to the trauma.
It does. Cause I was empty. My kids weren't in the room. They took them out of me. They wheeled me to this room and told me to sleep. I couldn't. I hadn't eaten in 24 hours. I was so sleep deprived and I'm like, take me to the NICU. So they take me, Dylan and I half walked, half wheeled me in the chair and I met the boys and they're sitting in their separate rooms in the NICU and they're like, do you want to hold baby B, do you want to hold the baby? I'm like, yeah. He was 4 pounds. Wow. He was a tiny little nugget. And I'm like, yeah. And they put him on my chest. And I had this flood of, like, you feel it, this flood of hormones, which is what helps your breast milk come in and everything. But I hadn't eaten in 24 hours and I hadn't slept. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to pass out. And they're like, what? I'm like, take the baby. I'm going to pass out. I was like sitting there and I'm like, I need to eat something. And like, nobody was like, does mom need to eat? You know what I mean? Like they're taking care of the kids, which is good, but like nobody was like, mom needs water, mom needs food, mom needs to sleep.
And this is like, quote unquote, the best hospital in the state.
It is. It totally is.
And this is the standard of care.
They do fantastic for the kids. I don't think that it's standard to be like, what does mom need? I don't think that it is across our country.
This is just crazy.
And in our healthcare system, I don't think it's, let's make sure mom's okay so that she could take care of her kids.
Yeah.
So I kind of had a hard time with, they kept telling me to come back to the room for my pain meds instead of like coming to the NICU and bringing me my medication, which I think would have helped. And I found out later from the doctor that they could have done that. So like these are conversations that you could have educated me ahead of time when I wasn't like in this crazed state of shock, that I knew what my medication options were. I knew what my food options were. I knew how to get food. I can have my meds in the NICU. I can spend as much skin to skin time with my kids as possible. Apparently they could have brought in a hospital bed for me into the NICU. Didn't know that.
Wow.
Like there's all this stuff that I wish I would have known, which I feel guilty about. Like that I feel like I didn't spend enough time with my kids like the first couple weeks of their life because I was trying to like regroup. And I was in such this weird, survival. And so, my pain meds were just Tylenol and ibuprofen. And then once I got discharged and I went home, Dylan and I would go sleep at home and then go back and be with the boys all day because I couldn't sleep in the chairs there because of my incision. I couldn't sleep in the chairs. So I go home and I woke up in the middle of the night screaming because of my pain. Ugh. And only then were they like, oh, yeah, well, if you want pain meds, we have better pain med options. Why is that not from the get?
Yeah.
And they gave, so Dylan had called in the middle of the night and they're like, we can deliver Oxy. We can have it delivered to the nearest 24-hour hospital or pharmacy. Well, we live in middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So he had to drive like 45 minutes to the nearest 24-hour pharmacy. In the middle of the night, he called my mom to come sit with me, which thankfully she's close and she did. So when the boys were in the NICU, they were there for 2 weeks. We would drive to the hospital. It's an hour away. And then home, an hour back every day. So I'm sitting in the car, walking from the car to the NICU, I would do the kids' vitals. I would change their diapers. I would do their baths. I would do like all of their care when I was there. It was hard on my abdomen. Yeah. It was really hard on my abdomen because there's 2 of them. And I'm pumping. And I'm trying to like, they couldn't feed yet because they were preemies. They were 6 weeks early. They couldn't like latch on me yet. So I was trying to like, I was mostly pumping, but trying to like have them spend time on me. And my abdomen was having a hard time healing. And I was like, because they had only given me a couple days, I was like, could I have a couple more days? And they're like, why? You need to come in for an appointment because you should be fine at this point. It was like day 7 or something. I'm like,
can I just tell you? So
I'm like, there's so many reasons why my abdomen is not healing well because I'm doing so much.
My husband looked into getting a tummy tuck because he's lost a ton of weight. And they said that it would take him like 6 months of healing. And that's not even cutting through everything. You had everything
I think
cut
it's
through.
7 layers. Correct me.
I don't
Fact
know,
check me.
but,
I think it's 7 layers of women, of the woman that you cut through.
You know, him, it's like nothing. But they said he would need to be off work for a month. And like totally, I would need to take care of him. And then like 6 months till full recovery and everything.
So they send the mom home and say, take care of your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is so different the way that they treat men and women. They brought me back at 6 weeks and they pretty much were like, you good, bro? And I was like, no. Yeah. I was like, can I have a PT referral? They're like, for what? I'm like, why is it?
Because you just ripped into my abs.
Yes, because I'm not good. Like my healing process, I was struggling. I still have like so much scar tissue down here, and it's a year and a half later. And I wish they would have taught me like how you can manipulate the scar tissue to help with the healing.
Oh.
They don't teach you any of that stuff. Why don't they? Why is that not a standard of care? Any major surgery that is something that happens to both men and women is like 6 weeks physical therapy.
Yeah.
That is like, I worked for an orthopedic surgeon, and you get a shoulder surgery, you get hip surgery, you get ankle surgery, you get hand surgery, whatever it is, it's like you always get a PT referral.
Yeah.
Why are women not given like standard of care PT referral after a C-section?
Yeah.
Or a vaginal delivery? There's so much like pelvic floor therapy to help like heal your body that should be occurring. I don't know why that's not happening. Is it because, well, you're at home taking care of the kid? Well, we need to prioritize mommy being okay so that she can be well for her child.
There's another thing too. You're not always at home healing. Like a lot of times mom needs to go back to work.
Yeah.
Because there's no guaranteed paid leave. There's no guaranteed paid leave.
I have a lot of mom friends that didn't have paid leave.
Like the only thing, I looked it up, the only thing that is guaranteed, and this is not even for everyone, it's only through certain companies, usually publicly traded big companies, you get 12 weeks unpaid.
That they won't fire you.
Yeah.
You can leave for 12 weeks and come back and you won't get fired.
But you won't get paid. And so like, it's just, but if you
But after that, if you don't come back,
you can be fired. Yeah. It's just insane. And like, just learning what I have about breast milk, that's where I'm like, okay, because unpaid, that doesn't mean you get 12 weeks off, because if you're strapped on finances, you need to go back to work. Like my mom ran a small business, still runs a small business her entire life. Like she needed to go back to work right away. Like when you run your own business, there is no like savings account. Like, you know, you being there is your paycheck. So
what if you're stuck with these huge hospital bills? And by the way, I worked so hard on my breast milk. I could not provide enough for the two of them. I worked so hard on hydrating and food and trying to get good sleep. Well, I'm not getting good sleep. I have newborn twins.
Yeah.
I'm up I would feed one, and it took half an hour to feed them because they were having a hard time eating, like sucking and swallowing. I would feed the other half an hour. I would pump for half an hour. Then I'd clean everything up. I'd change diapers. I'd swaddle them. I'd put them back to bed. 30 minutes later, we're doing it again. I did that for months.
Wow.
Because they were low birth weight. One baby B was 4 pounds. Baby A was 5 pounds.
Wow.
So trying to make sure that they're gaining weight, I wasn't producing enough breast milk. They weren't able to breastfeed. And I was trying to like tell myself, like, I'm not going to put pressure on myself to breastfeed. I just want them to eat. If it's from a bottle, it's from a bottle. And we had to buy formula, and formula for 2 for a year was so expensive.
Was that during the time where there was a formula shortage, or was that be like after?
I think that might have been before.
Yeah.
There has been a couple different formula shortage that have occurred over the last, I feel like, decade. And I think around COVID, people were scared about like having access to that.
There was one, I think it was like the FDA didn't properly test. It's actually a Michigan facility where the largest manufacturer is. They didn't test properly. So when they finally did get around to test, all of the formula was contaminated with something.
I saw that.
So,
but you learned that after you already fed it to your kid.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I checked it. It wasn't a brand that I was giving my kids, so thank God. But and if your kid is having a hard time digesting the protein, you have to get even more expensive formula. And I literally did everything. I pumped for 7 months. And I was like, I'm up all night. I'm not getting sleep. This is affecting my mental health. I wanted to be that mom that could just breastfeed my children. And I tried, and I would feed them kind of snacks here and there. Like, I was proud of, like, I fed them both at the same time a couple times, but, like, sometimes your body doesn't produce as much as it just happens. It could be from stress. It could be from lack of sleep. I was not sleeping.
C-section.
Like, it could be from the C-section. Yeah. It could be a lot of things. And then trying to go back to work, I was so stressed.
Yeah.
I had to come back to work, and I had to take a big exam for my job.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm trying to study for this exam, and my brain isn't working. And I have all this anxiety about whoever's in charge of my kids when I'm at work. I was so anxious about them.
Yeah.
I was so
How long
scared.
until you went back to work?
So because I have the company that I work for with good insurance and good, like women, I was paid full time 12 weeks.
Wow.
And I was given like FMLA support prior to that because of my high risk pregnancy. I went down to like part time, but I still got paid for like my full time.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know that is not normal. I know that that's a really special situation, and I'm really lucky that I have that.
But it still wasn't enough.
Oh my God. Dylan and I were like, should I not go back to work? Also, like, childcare is insane.
Yeah. It's a mortgage payment.
It's insane. We pay like, I think 30 grand a year for childcare.
It's crazy.
And there's a lot of families that can't do that. Or like, cause I'm crazy. I'm like, I don't trust, I want my eyes on my kids. I want somebody to come to my home and care for them. And we have like the best situation that we could have. I got so lucky with our nanny. She's amazing. She loves them so much. Yeah. Like, she protects them with her life. And I know that she does. She does so good. She cares about their development. She cares about their sleep. She cares about following like the rules that I request. She does amazing. But that's awesome. Again, that's not normal. We're lucky that we have that. And I didn't want to send them to daycare. Yeah, a lot of people have
to send their kids to daycare, where kids like every other week are getting sick with something
getting
new.
Sick or getting hurt because there's so many kids.
Yeah.
And I have a neighbor who she saw her kid getting yanked and thrown across the room by one of the workers, and she witnessed it. And I'm like, that's why I want my eyes on my kid still.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky. I have the opportunity to work a hybrid schedule. I go in 1 day a week, and I work from home the other 4 days a week. And I have my separate office, but I come down and I kind of have an eye over the situation, and I can kind of helicopter parent my children, which I know that I'm doing, but I'm like very protective of them.
You should be.
Yeah.
Like, that's normal.
But moms that have to go, and they have to just hope and pray that the people that are in charge of their children are going to keep them safe.
Well, and I think it's like a societal, cultural thing too, that moms feel like, I have to go to work. Like, even if you can afford to stay at home, so many people think like, I can't put my life on hold. Like, this is the thing to do. I have to go to work. But
most families need the dual income now.
Yeah.
Because of just housing and bills and food and...
Yeah.
If you want to travel at all, like, we sat down and we looked, Dylan is so good with the budget. And we sat down and we're like, we can do it if I stayed at home for a year, but, we're not going out to eat and we're not going to be traveling, which obviously isn't the end of the world at all. But we have told each other, we try not to be, like, financially, we try not to spend a lot of money on, like, things. And like live simply as much as we can, because we want to have like the experiences. Yeah. Like, if we're talking about trying to keep our kids away from like sitting and watching TV, sitting and looking at your phone, we want our kids to like, we've talked about how even for a little, I don't think we're going to do homeschooling, but what if we learn about like Gettysburg, and we learn about, and then we go and we take them there, and we have like these experiences where they're learning about like the environment that we take them to. We want to have that kind of family.
Yeah. I mean, my dream life, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it, but my dream life would be like in the summer, 1 month out of the year, take the family to Italy because my family is there. And then the kids can learn another language and actually experience different culture. There's a lot of history there. And then, yeah, exactly what you're saying. Like, okay, we learned about this. Okay, we're going to go to DC and, learn about government and
It's
actually like
important
see
to
the
take
three
your
branches.
kids out of their little town and learn about other people and other lifestyles. And I know how lucky we are to have what we have. I don't want my children to be like, oh yeah, this is how it is in the world. No, it's not.
No.
And you have to make sure that the people that don't have the same opportunities that we have are protected. And like, you and I are talking about men and women, but also like people of different socioeconomic backgrounds.
Yeah.
People that don't have the same opportunity. I know that we are privileged. I know that my family, Dylan and I know that our children are going to be privileged, but I want them to be cultured and I want them to be good and kind and I want them to take care of other people.
Yeah, I think privilege, that's a loaded topic. I think the true privilege today, this is going to get me canceled. I think true privilege is a 2-parent household. Yep. And I think it's exactly like what you're talking about, where you can work from home most days, which is my life now. I've created this life, and it wasn't something that was just given to me. I worked really hard for many years to create this, where now I am working from home. And so I'm doing, majorly a content creator, so I can do that anywhere. So if I have
But
kids,
also you're really putting yourself out there and being really vulnerable to do that.
Yeah. But, like I said, but like in terms of like kids, like, yeah, it's definitely, that's where true privilege comes from, is having that 2-parent household, being able to have the best education for your kids. That's privilege too. Like, yeah. And a few episodes ago, I interviewed someone. He's my county commissioner, Bob Hoffman, and he said something amazing. He said his parents gave him everything he needed, but anything he wanted, he had to work for. And I thought that was great.
Also, if you're raised, even if you have both of your parents, but you haven't had the same opportunities, and you're in high school and you have to work to help feed the family, or to help pay the bills and help keep the home that you have. And then you're kind of stuck in this loop of just like keeping everybody fed and keeping the bills paid. You don't have that opportunity to maybe go to college.
Yeah.
And then get that bigger job where you make more money, where you have even more opportunity, where you have the insurance that is going to pay for a delivery. You have the insurance that's going to pay for paid time off. Yeah,
being able to like go to any school you want, like just because you have the money to afford it, that's privilege right there. Like I got accepted to U of M, but I couldn't go because I couldn't afford it. So I had to settle on a median school. I went to the best school name for what I could afford. So, some people didn't have to work at all. They could pick wherever they wanted to go, and mom and dad paid for everything. I started I did babysitting when I was a teenager, but I started working at 16, and that takes a lot out of you too, because then there's things that I had to turn down. I couldn't be a kid, and then I did not get the college experience at all because I worked full time.
You were working, right?
I worked full time.
You're studying and working.
And at that point, a couple years in, me and my husband had a house, so we had to take care of our house. That's a big job, So, yeah, I don't know. Privilege comes in many forms, but I think in terms of like kids, the best thing you can do for them is have stability. So that 2-parent household, or at least if it's not 2 parents, it's stable. So many people, have like crazy step, whatever, and everyone gets in fights and everything. Like if you have a cordial relationship with everyone. Like that's the best thing for that child. And then giving them the best education. Education is just so huge because that's what I had. I had a horrible childhood, but I had education. Like that was my thing. Like that's why I researched so much. I really say it's a trauma response because like when I was having a hard time at home, like I buried myself in books. Like that was my let out. So,
But education can even be, how do we raise these animals? How do we grow these plants?
Yep.
Education can be like, how do we learn what we can pick from the woods and scavenge, and
that's like
that
real
can be
life.
a really good, that is education that we've slowly pulled away from. And it can present itself differently in a household. But education doesn't always have to be talking about math equations or talking about science theories, but being like out, understanding how to take care of your property, understanding how to feed your family.
Like you and your husband are always, you guys are very handy. So you're always doing something around your house. Like that's incredible knowledge to have. That's knowledge I don't have. I have to pay people to do that stuff. But
we're YouTube people. We're like, I don't know how to build this deck, but let's like buy the stuff and look it up on YouTube and like learn how to do it.
Love it.
Yeah, we're very much YouTube DIY stuff.
Okay, we got cut off because my camera overheated. I don't know why. It happened my last episode too, and it hasn't given me problems. Like
because the conversation's getting hot.
Yeah, and I have 3 cameras, and it's only doing it to one, so I'll have to check it out.
I love this setup in here. It's so you. It's so like extra and cute, and like you're like so prepared with all of this.
So many people are like, you just need to start. Like you just have to hit record, like just start your show. It doesn't have to be video. You can just do audio, just get a decent mic. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I'm crazy. So like I spent months researching.
When you do something, you do it right.
I go for it.
I love that.
So yeah, months of research.
I love that about you.
Now, one thing I want to talk about that will probably make me cry. Maybe if I said that, I won't actually cry.
I'm surprised I haven't lost it more. At the beginning, I was like shaky voice, but then I gained my composure.
I'm going to ruin it for us now. So, like I said at the beginning, like I try to think about like what others are experiencing, like every pregnant person is told like, oh, what are you having? How many weeks? Whatever. So I never want to be that person. And I knew it was going to be a lot having kids. And I knew that I don't know if you explicitly like told me that you guys wanted just some time as a family for a little bit or whatever.
We did.
But I feel like it was almost like a year until we connected. Like, I feel like we didn't talk for like a year. And then when we did, and
after like the photo shoot, you mean? Like when we first...
after you had your babies.
Oh, after I had the babies.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it was like a year because...
I feel like I went underground.
You obviously were going through it. I was like knee deep in politics leading up to the presidential election. So like I'm just like nonstop working. And then, like a lot of my friends were just like, adult friends. Like we know that life happens and stuff. Like it's going to be a while.
You and I have that kind of friendship though, where like when we hang out, like we snap right back into our friendship and our support. And like I text you, I call you, whatever, you're available, but sometimes life gets so busy.
Yeah.
I don't even notice sometimes that too much time went by.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in survival mode. Whatever that looks like, whether it's work or family or children or whatever. Sometimes you're in survival mode where you just need to focus on, when am I eating next? When am I sleeping next? Everybody's alive still. And you're not really thinking about anything else.
But like when you reached out, I don't know if I reached out to you, you reached out to me. I think you sent me like a picture of the boys because I had, for your baby shower, I made them blankets and bibs and stuff.
Oh, they love them. They still sleep in them.
Aw, because I sew, so I love it. Anytime someone has a baby, I'm like, don't you worry, I'll get working. So I think you had sent me a photo of them like in their blankies or whatever. And I'm like, how are you doing? Like, it's been so long, And because like, I did think of you a lot, but I'm like, she probably, is going through a lot. and needs time with her boys. And I'm sure everyone's checking up on her.
Mm-hmm.
And when you left me that voice message about how awful your experience was at the hospital, I was like, I haven't checked up on her.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel horrible. Like,
there's like a, you're going to make me cry.
I know.
You don't have to feel like that. You're so sweet. There's, it's nice to hear that because I feel like people want to be supportive, but people also want to give you the space that you need, and people don't know what to do.
Like, what's the balance?
I don't think that there's a right thing to do, except you can give virtual support. You can send food. You know, like I know people that just like send food to your house and say, don't answer the door. I'm just bringing this over. But at some point, people, they do stop checking in, you know, like the first couple months, people really check in, but then like, I mean, it could be years later and people don't understand. You kind of lose yourself when you're a mom a little bit. You have to like find yourself again. And you see who your true people are. Mm-hmm. You see it in your family. You see it in your relationship with your partner. Yeah. You see it in your friends and in your coworkers, people that like are still there, even though I don't have newborns anymore. I have toddlers, but people that like still care to like, I want to be friends with you. I want to get together with you, even if you sit there and talk about your kids. And even if it's support from afar, it's good, and you don't have to feel that way. I'm so sorry that you felt that way.
Well, I just, like I said, like I wanted to give you space, but yeah, I just should have checked up. But it didn't cross my mind ever, so I hope you know it didn't. Like I don't put that pressure on anybody to like know the right thing to do, because I don't really know what the right thing to do either is, you know. Like this is such a it's so complicated. Yeah. Like having kids and trying to figure out the right thing to do, and trying to make the best life for them, and trying to learn how to have like a healthy balance with work, life, family, friends. It's even though it's been going on for centuries and centuries, I don't think there's a right way to do it. You're just learning. Yeah. And you gotta be kind to yourself about it. Mm-hmm. You gotta be kind to your people in your life too. And I don't know what you're going through. You don't know what I'm going through. But when we do check in, it's just like, I'm here for you. Yeah. And that's all that matters. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like us women, we got to take care of each other. Yeah. And that's like the thing too, is like, you know, I'm always like, well, what can we do to fix all of this mess? Like, right. You know, like we can't just like complain all the time. Like women shouldn't have to go through this. Like when they give birth, they should know all their options going in. And when I asked you, like, what can we do about it? You're like, okay, well, just telling like our stories. Yeah. Just talking about it, being vulnerable, being able to be like, this is what happened. I want to, if you're going to go through it, I want to warn you, and I want to be ready to help you. Mm-hmm. I talked to my doctor. I like sat her down at my 6-week checkup after the delivery. And I think it was like 6 months. And I said, you need to advocate better for your patients. Wow. I told that to her, and she was like taken aback. Wow. And I was like, I wasn't okay, and nobody checked in on me. And I told you I wasn't okay. And I told people on your team I wasn't okay. And while the child is important, the mother is important too. Mm-hmm. And that needs to be more part of the conversation. And she was like, okay. Wow. And she was really, because she's a mom and she's been doing this for a long time. And I like totally cried when I was in the office and I said that to her. Yeah. And she was like, okay. She said, I'll take that back to my colleagues, and we need to do better. So I think, I'm glad you did that. Mm-hmm. I think making sure you remember your voice is really, really important. Mm-hmm. With what's happening in our country, with the divide that seems to be occurring. And people are like, I'm this lifestyle, or I'm that lifestyle. I'm this political standpoint. I'm that political standpoint. I'm this, you know, kind of a mother. I'm that kind of a mother. We are doing so much judgment and division instead of like coming together with knowledge and support. Mm-hmm. And that, like, you always chasing the truth and advocating for the truth
whether that even agrees with like what your original opinion about it was or not. You're always like chasing knowledge and facts, and I think that is important. And you taking the time to do this, and anybody can sit in this chair. A mom that had a C-section that was scary for her, or somebody that wants to be a senator, or somebody that's a local farmer, or somebody that's a local firefighter. Like everybody has a voice, and you're giving us an opportunity to share our story and to build that community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Well, I appreciate you sharing. And, you know, as well, you know, the more I learn about government, the more I hate it. And I just like, I think everything the government touches breaks at this point. So I kind of just want the government out of my life as much as possible. But
you want to create change. And unfortunately, that's the route you got to go sometimes.
It is. And that's, I think if the Department of Health and Human Services does a standard of care for moms and makes it standard, like these are the options, if they do more studies, because
more education, more
there's
research.
Not enough data out there. You know, it should be like, okay, like maybe it's standard that mom does like a telehealth with a telehealth with like a therapist or something, like after.
Like multiple follow-ups.
Yeah.
For physical and mental health.
Yeah.
Because also, if we're like focused on the child, if mom is not okay, child is not okay. If mom is not sleeping, she's going to make like bad choices when it comes to like feeding her kid or how she's swaddling the child or whatever. Like if mom's not okay, that is going to put the child's life at risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really does.
I think like if HHS kind of does like a standard, if they do more research and everything, then, you know, hopefully the hospitals and everything carry that and say, okay, that's the standard. We need to do this. So I hope that they lead the charge on this. And yeah, there's just not enough people that are even researching women's health. You know, I mean, even, you know, we're just talking about like pregnancy and delivery, but like so many women come in with concerns and they're like, oh, it's just anxiety. I actually had this at the dentist a couple weeks ago. I said I have TMJ, and my dentist, it was a new dentist I went to. I won't go back, but she goes, how do you know you have TMJ? And I just stared at her for half a second, and she's like, has a specialist told you that? And I said, yes, in fact, a specialist has, because my jaw was stuck in place, and I had to go to a specialist to unlock my jaw.
Yeah.
So yes.
Why is the first comment an accusation instead of like, I'm listening to you, there's a problem, let's address it?
And then she says, well, do you have anxiety?
I mean, who doesn't have anxiety, first of all?
But the thing is, though, is like, I mean, like, I can get anxious, but I wouldn't say I have anxiety. I don't know. I really attribute it to my faith, because I shouldn't be as happy as I am. Like, it's just like everything I've gone through in my life. I've always been a happy person. I really have.
You've worked so hard to pull yourself out of the scenarios that you've been in, though.
Yeah.
Really hard.
So when I said like, no, I don't have anxiety, she looked at me like I was lying to her. And it's just, and no matter what you have, like,
does that matter anyway? There's like a medical problem occurring. Let's talk about how we can prevent it from causing more problems. Because if you have TMJ, like, you could be grinding.
And that's what we were talking about, because I have silver fillings, and I was asking, like, shouldn't I get these fillings out, especially if I want to have kids, because they're mercury. Mercury's poisonous to babies. So I was opening up that conversation, and turns out, you know, the internet helped me within 5 minutes. There's certain dentists that are actually certified to take mercury out of your mouth. Like it's a whole setup. You have to be really
careful.
Yeah, it's a whole setup.
And your muscles and your fascia is going to respond to that foreign object that is potentially toxic for you.
Yeah.
And so if that could be causing your muscular strain in your jaw.
Yeah.
I believe that.
And she acted like I was crazy. I just couldn't believe it. And then like that was the line of questioning. And
Instead
so
of like, here's what we know, here are your resources.
Yep.
Let's ask these questions.
So, and that's just a prime example of, it doesn't matter what it is. Like women, this is like the story all the time. Women go in and it's, oh, is it anxiety? Let me just give you an antidepressant. Like, it's like guys. But when guys go in, it's a completely different story. Like, you know, they actually pay attention to what the complaint is, you know.
Did I tell you that for like my complaints about like my lack of knowledge about what would happen during the C-section, my options for medication before, during, and after, no clue, had no idea. The lack of follow-up was incredible. Dylan was talking about a vasectomy. They brought him in for a consultation. I didn't have that. They went, here's everything that's going to happen. Here's exactly how the procedure is going to go. You're going to get a Valium ahead of time to keep you calm. These are the pain medications that I think they sent him home with. I don't think they sent him home with like Oxy or something. They sent him home with Tylenol, ibuprofen or whatever. But it is like such a minor surgery compared to like getting 7 layers of your body ripped open. I was like, huh. They sat you down for an hour and gave you all of this information and like made sure you knew what your options were and what was going to occur and what, like, I don't think they let you lift anything for however many days after.
Yeah, it was like 7 days. I looked it up.
And
it's
I'm like,
remarkable.
that is not what they did for me. And my surgery was so much more intense. And it's like the difference between men in healthcare and women in healthcare. That is a prime example. Both have to do with your reproductive system. One is minor, one is super severe.
Yeah, you told me yesterday you should look up the standard of care for both, and it's remarkable how similar they are. Like getting like your healing process for a vasectomy is 24 to 48 hours. They said healing for a C-section is 3 to 4 days. Just a little bit longer. Like, but they both were like both ibuprofen and like both can't lift. Like, it's just remarkable.
But
like,
one is so much more severe than the other.
100%.
Yeah. I would have loved to have a Valium in the OR. Let me say. I'm assuming it's not safe for the kid. But the second the kids are out, like, give me something. Even like, I keep saying laughing gas. That sounds silly, but like, I feel like I would have been in such a better place if I knew that I had a choice for something to help keep me calm.
Yeah.
And that probably would have been better for my body and my recovery and my first couple days, like with my kids.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. We definitely need to make sure like women's research, we need to take care of women better.
Yeah. 100%.
We need to take care of non-childbearing women better. We need to take care of childbearing women better, just across the board.
Yeah. Reproduction, no matter what stage, like some people just like to talk about abortion. And I'm like, okay, what about everything else too?
Yep.
There's so much that goes into it. And it should be, if you want to get pregnant, you should have that option. If like you should have every resource available to be able to breastfeed, because that gives your child the best start on life. It builds their immune system, like everything in between, you know, like, so I appreciate you telling your story. Like you said, like we really need better research, all over. I mean, I talked about my story in my second episode about PCOS, and my PCOS was most likely caused by birth control.
Are you sure it wasn't anxiety?
So funny. And most doctors, to heal, cure, whatever, treat PCOS is birth control. So you're giving people what causes the problem. It's just amazing. So I only healed myself because I did my own research and I was my own advocate. So yeah, I'm glad you opened up. You know, I'm sure I would love to have more moms. Like if someone did a natural birth, that'd be cool to highlight too and stuff. So I appreciate you coming on, and yeah,
Thanks for giving me a space to chat.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm sure I'm just mouth breathing into this mic. Sorry for being more, I'm a pretty nasally person as it is, but Thanks for being patient about that. Thanks for having me.
Yep. I appreciate you coming on.
Okay, I love you.
Love you too.